Hello everybody, it's EK from EK Women Designs, and I am sneaking in with 5 fast cards I created today using the My God, a card making kit from White Rose Crafts. If you haven't seen this kit, I did an unboxing earlier this week and I will link above. It is a kit that's been cultivated specifically to help create cards for the men in your life. And it's kind of a one-stop shop for all your men card making needs. And I'm showing today how easy it is to make cards using it, and I'm starting with card 1 here. I took a piece of paper from the Do Craft Mr. decoupage set and put a little Distress Oxide around the edges, and then some of the Kaiser Craft paper I trimmed up, and I'm adding it, and yes, I'm leaving it long. I'm doing that on purpose because I want to add some of this jelly bean thread to it. And I don't want to tuck the edges under the card, I want to tuck it under the piece of paper. So, yeah, that's why the edges are long. I want the edges to extend to the edge of the card, but not so much. Anyway, I also made a mistake. I wanted to add the charm to it, but I needed to add it to both so it didn't get wonky. Yeah, so now I'm undoing the work I've done, and then resecuring the jelly bean thread with a little double-sided adhesive. There we go, there we go, there we go. And we've got it. I'm using my craft runner, which I am not skilled at using a craft runner in any way, shape, or form, but I also know how long it takes to peel back double-sided adhesive when I'm filming a video. Nobody wants to watch that. So you get to watch me instead struggle with a craft runner. If anybody's got a suggestion of craft runner they actually trust and like and find easy to use, please feel free to leave it in the comments below, because I don't have that skill. So the charm just wasn't laying straight no matter what I did, and in a minute you'll see how I solved that. But I took a piece of decoupage from the Mr. set and just adhered it down, and then using a glue dot I just kind of secured the little ornament, and then using another piece of decoupage I added the little tag at the bottom. And there you go, there's card number 1. For card 2, I wanted to do some stamping and some layering of paper, and I wanted to use the Woodware Gone Fishing stamp set to make a card for a fisherman. Both of the men in my life, both my husband and my son, fish regularly together. I think they do it simply to escape me and my daughters. But this card's perfect for either one of them if I need to, just because. I took a piece of the Metallics silver cardstock, trimmed it up to 4.25 by 5.55, no, 5.5, and stamped using Memento ink both the fishing pole and the fish onto it. Now, because of the nature of this metallic paper, it doesn't stamp normally, but if you let it dry and give it some time, it will in fact dry and set. I like the Memento ink on it just because yeah. Now, with any brand new stamp set, you'll realize that you need to sometimes stamp it once for a good print. Because I'm the world's worst stamper, you'll see I have a terrible second print. But when I stamped it a third time, you'll see it's just a perfect stamp. So if you find your stamps don't stamp right the first time, just kind of ink them up, stamp it, and then ink it seriously. I'm going to do a little alcohol coloring on this image of the fisherman with his fish, and I'm using my Nouveau Creative pen. This is the Fair Skin collection. I'm not doing anything real special, I'm just kind of dropping in some simple shadows and a little bit of color, basically. I'm not trying to get real fancy with my coloring here. The coloring isn't the star of the show. The image and the card is, so yeah, nothing real fancy here. I'm maneuvering through a bunch of different colors because I wanted it to tie into the colors in the background, and there's those teals on the papers that I've trimmed up that I thought both that organic green, olivey tones, and dark tones would look real nice. For the grays, I'm struggling with this collection. This is the Stormy Grays collection. The light tone of the threesome is very, very light. And I'm really struggling with how to get my highlights right on it. I just need more practice and play. So you'll see I use very little of the lightest shade, and I really just use it as a touch of highlight. For the fish, I went with teal. just to tie into the papers more that I've trimmed up. No big deal, easy peasy. Like I said, nothing fancy coloring. I'm just kind of dropping it into a natural scale shadow and coloring it out. Now, I will tell you, I moved in the middle of 2020 and set up a new house. And this is actually the first video I have filmed in the new house, so I'm still getting used to my new setup, so you'll notice I'm often got things off camera. It's because I'm a dork and I haven't figured things out yet. It's really that simple. Major dork who can't use a craft runner. I thought craft runners were supposed to make things easier. Not for me, no, no. But I do love how the 2 printed Kaiser craft papers that I trimmed up look on top of the metallic silver paper. Silver? It's not silver, it's bone. Anyway, I popped up the fisherman with some 3-dimensional squares, as well as the sentiment. And there you go, a really simple stamped card, but I think effective for your guy. If he's a fisherman, which mine are. For the 3rd card, I wanted to play with it around with the Do Craft. What is it called? It's like my master, waiting for my master. It's a decoupage set that's meant to be built up. And again, I pulled out that rust-colored piece of metallic cardstock. Yeah, metallic cardstock. Say that 1,000 times. And I wanted to add some shadowing to the corners. It's hard to see in my light setup that I've got the color there, but as you move the card, you can actually see where the ink is, and it adds some depth and shadow. But I wanted to again add the jelly bean string prior to gluing it down to my card base, and I'm a dork and added the adhesive to the back of it, and now I'm fighting and struggling because I don't think things through. I just plow forward and I'm a dork. Yeah. I'm also apparently not capable of tying strings. This was the last bit I'd used on the first card. Like I initially trimmed too much off, and this little bit was too much, thus making the tying process a nightmare. I wanted the knot to stay down, so again I pulled out a glue dot, kind of swirled it up, and adhered things. Now again, using some 3-dimensional squares, I am about to build up this Anita's decoupage set, which is, if you haven't seen these, they're really cool. The way the camera films it, it's not very effective, but in real life, it's 3-dimensional. It's almost like a holograph, where the image is popping up, and there's depth and dimension, and you're just not seeing it real well on the camera, but in real life, it's really fun. Now, this becomes a really tall card. It's not one I would put into the mail, but definitely one I would tuck into somebody's gift in person. And I love, like, if you can see the little dog peeking in from outside, and you see the plated cheese and the man's coat draped over. It's just kind of a fun, old school, it feels very old world, like one of the master's paintings. But I like it because, I don't know, the image itself becomes androgynous, thus making it kind of cool for a man. I knew I needed a sentiment, and I wanted to use one of the tickets from the Kaiser Craft paper pack that's included in the set. This one I like because you can trim it up to make it into ephemera, and so that I was showing you how I trim it up. I use my paper cutter and I just cut along the lines until I get what I want. To give this a little bit more authenticity and less squareness, I just pulled off the corners of the ticket, and again added some 3-dimensional squares to pop it up. And there you go, that's the 3rd card. Here you can see how tall this card gets with all the different layers. And in the picture, I think you can kind of see a little bit of the dimension. For the 4th card, I wanted to just play around and make a quirky, fun card. So I trimmed up a piece of the Kaiser Craft paper, apparently got one of the dog's hairs stuck into the adhesive, stopped fighting it, and just adhered the paper to the cardstock. This is a piece of the cardstock from the Kaiser Craft that's got some dimension. It's not dimension, it's a shiny print on it, so when you move it in the light, the little mustaches reflect light. It's very fun. I have a simple piece of cardstock here that I've trimmed up by 3/4 of an inch, and I'm stamping the fun mustache man onto it. I think they're so fun. They're like different personality mustache imposters. And I only say imposters because I have kids who play that game with imposters. I don't even know what it is. I'm desperately trying not to learn. I wanted to give the card a little shimmer and shine, so I splashed some sheer shimmer craft spray in gold onto it. It's subtle, but it works. The sentiment comes from the Kaiser Craft stamp set, the same stamp set the little guys come from, and just stamped it in black ink. And I was going to end here, but it needed something more, so I pulled out the big gear from the Kaiser Craft stamp set and just kind of added it to the sides, and I thought it finished the card off really nicely. So there you go. There's a fun image. Nothing fancy, nothing special, but fun nonetheless. For the last card today, I wanted to paper piece and add layers. I had mentioned in my unboxing that one of the sheets would make great ephemera, and so I wanted to show off how cool, if you trim up that piece of Kaiser Craft paper, how great the ephemera could become. So I trimmed up one of the big sheets with airplanes on it that had that fun reflective quality, and then trimmed up the ephemera, and I needed them to kind of come together a little bit, so using the included Scrapberry brown ink, I just distressed the edges and gave them a bit of that brown-red color just to tie everything in together, and adhered them down using my terrible craft roller skills. I just don't have it. And my coloring is off, but the card and the piece are actually different colors. One's blue, one's teal green, and then the man's a third color. And then I've got another sentiment, and I just trimmed it down, and I like it. It says, no matter how tall I get, I will always look up to you. It's a great card for a son to give a father, I think. I knew my craft runner would never work, so I pulled back out double-sided adhesive and added the sentiment. And I just kind of anchored them onto that far right side just to give it a different perspective. And there you go, that's my final card today. I hope you got a kick out of looking at my 5 fast cards I created with the My Guide kit from White Rose Crafts. I will be back soon with another installment of 5 fast cards. And until then, happy crafting.